Hola and bienvenidos. Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Peter Mertens, and I serve as Interim Dean of the Division of Continuing Education and Workforce Development here at Hostos Community College. I'm happy to serve as your moderator today for this Veladas Hostosianas, Hostos Culture Talk, celebrating Pride Month. Happy Pride to all. The Veladas series are sponsored by the Office of the President, and we have an exciting program to present today. We'll be viewing and discussing Chakalmex, a short documentary exploring the themes of sex, socioeconomic status, and race in Mexico City's gay community. After viewing the film, we'll engage in a question and answer with the filmmaker, Professor Joelle González-Laguer of the Behavioral and Social Sciences Department, as well as with the cultural and medical anthropologist, Professor Victor Torres-Vélez of the Humanities Department. We will also hear from Ms. Gisela Kozak, novelist and storyteller, who will share from her text, Passion. Ms. Kozak is one of the contributing authors of the Hostos Review, Veladas Hostosianas, number 17, which was released in the fall 2020 semester. A friendly reminder that this event is being recorded and closed captioning is available at the bottom of the screen. Simply activate the tool if you need accessibility. We will be happy to take questions at the end of the program. Throughout the event, simply type them in the Q&A box, and I will read them at the end for our panelists. Panelists, please be reminded to mute yourself when you are not speaking. Please keep the responses timely so we may address the questions that come in. And now it is my pleasure and honor to introduce the interim president of Hostos, Dr. Daisy Cocco de Filippis, who will bring greetings and welcome all.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes. La familia está aquí. Even though it's a rainy June afternoon, here we are. And so very happy to welcome you to the Veladas Hostosianas, Hostos Culture Talk. So great to be able to showcase our talent, wonderful talent that we have. So we're screening another documentary, short film, by our wonderful Joelle. So Chakalmex, Joelle Laguer. We just saw Los Reyes Magos not too long ago, and I hope to see many more to be with you as we do that. So it will be followed by a discussion of the film. Peter Mertens, our interim dean, is moderating this event, and he's joined, of course, by many others of the Hostos family. I understand that Avercio is in the audience, so somehow Alfredo is with us as well today, and so I can feel his presence. So very, very happy to have him in the audience as well. And so we have Joelle Laguer, as we said, he's a filmmaker and also is an adjunct lecturer in our Behavioral and Social Sciences Department. For Professor Victor Torres-Vélez from our Humanities Department. Ernest lalongo, who wanted to be here, chair of the Department of Behavioral and Social Sciences and the College-wide Senate. We have our own professora Inmaculada, Lara Bonilla. Not only is she the coordinator of the Latin American program, but also the director of the Latin American Writers Institute. And they gave us, and that was my welcome back to Hostos, one of my first events to be there for the presentation of the issue number 16 of the Hostos Review, where we also had the opportunity to have Gisela Kozak work feature as well. And I see that she's generously joining us today as well. So Hostos, as you know, is always justifiably proud of the diversity of its faculty, staff, and students, and has been a long time an ally. I'll remember bringing my son when I was the provost to talk. He was at that time the head of Queers for Economic Justice, which was a non-for-profit. Joseph de Filippis is now a professor at Seattle University, to talk about that, and that out of that experience and other visitors, Hostos began to address the need to have a club and others. To see now that this journal was produced and that the contents, and to read in Profesora's Bonilla report to me that some of the content of the course of the revista is now integrated in some of the courses. That is precisely what needs to happen. I think, in a sense, we need to look at a curriculum and make sure that it represents all of the experience, all of the experience. So thank you so much to all of you. And I want to say that I am so happy that we are celebrating Pride Month in such a spectacular way. Mil gracias. Bendiciones. I look forward to this presentation.
Thank you, President, for those welcoming remarks. It's now my privilege to introduce Professor Laguer, and I would like to read a portion of his impressive bio. Filmmaker, entrepreneur, and Professor Joelle González-Laguer is from Isabela, Puerto Rico. He is a Hostos alumnus of the class of 1994. During his tenure at CUNY, Gonzalez-Laguer has received 5 educational development grants that enabled him to study and travel to Argentina, Cuba, and Mexico. His filmography includes 9 films, starting with A Revolt Through Letters, the Clemente Soto Velez story in 2011, 5 additional films before Chakalmex in 2018, El Tunel in 2019, and The Singing Kings in 2020. Professor has been invited to showcase his and discuss his films at many important colleges. Also, his films have been showcased in film festivals in Chile, Uruguay, Germany, Mexico, Cuba, Peru, United States, and France. Very impressive. During 2014, Joelle was a fellow in residence in Chicago in the Diverse Voice and Docs Project. In October of 2018, the Senate of Puerto Rico approved a motion of congratulations number 0898, presented by the Honorable Senator Evelyn Vasquez and signed by Thomas Rivera Schatz, President of the Senate, honoring Joelle's artistic career, devotion to education, and promoter par excellence of Puerto Rican talent in the United States of America. In 2019, April of that year, Southern Connecticut State University honored him with the first retrospective of the director's artistic work, displaying and discussing 5 of his film works. In May 2019, Chakalmex premiered at the famous Cineteca Nacional de Ciudad de Mexico with a large audience that positively acclaimed the work of the director. Also in August 2019, La Casa de Cultura, Isabelina, presented a motion to the Isabela legislature to recognize Joelle for his 15 years as an educator and for being a worthy representative of the Isabelina culture in the United States of America. Currently, Professor Joelle González-Laguer is a lecturer in the Behavioral Social Sciences Department at Hostos Community College. Please join me in welcoming Professor Laguer, who will now present his film, Chakalmex, to us. And Professor Laguer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dean Martin. I am honored to be invited again to this special event, Veladas Hostosianas, Culture Talks, that is a staple already in Hostos. People look for Veladas because it's such a wonderful event, and it brings the arts of culture in this magical way to all of us. I want to thank President Cocco de Filippis for her presence here. Madam President, I'm so happy, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Also, I want to acknowledge the dear chair of the Behavioral Social Science Department, Professor Lalongo, who is here today. And I want to thank both Victor and Peter for accompanying me in this velada, and also Professor Inmaculada, Lara, Bonilla, and Gisela Kozak for being here supporting this wonderful event. And in filmmaking, we always say it's a collaborative endeavor. In order to make a film, you need people, and this is what I like. I like to work with others. I like to showcase my work, but most of all, I am so happy I'm a Hostos graduate at this moment because Hostos is all over the place with this wonderful grant that we got that will do so good to the Hostos community. And I want to talk a little bit about my film. I don't believe, you have to talk a lot, let the audience look at it, but I want to say that this film was made with the contribution of the National Autonomous University of Mexico. So the UNAM provided me with a crew and with producers that allowed me to go to Mexico and to do this wonderful short documentary. And without the UNAM and without Professor Lamont and Jorge del Olmo, one of the producers, Enrique Gutierrez, this film I couldn't do it because I am from Puerto Rico. I went to Mexico City exploring a subculture that it was unknown to me until that moment. We did some research before getting to the ground and doing all the filming, but it was a new subject. And I am sure most people looking at this film today will find this a new subject in their lives. I don't want to talk a lot. I want the film to do its work. And thank you so much for being here.
El chacal muchas veces llega al antro para buscar a dónde pasarla bien.
Yo, por ejemplo, yo no me considero todo un chacal.
Yo nunca me consideré chacal.
Yo he preguntado a varios amigos que si yo podría ser el chacal, ¿no? Dicen, no eres el chacal con la barba y eso no.
Chacal puede ser o el chico que te lleva el gas a la casa.
Cualquiera, un chacal, pues era alguien que te va un pillo.
Más allá de un físico, de un comportamiento sexual.
Rudo, fuerte, que le gustan las chicas, pero le encanta el desmadre con los chavos, ¿no?
Se asocia a la figura del chacal porque así ha venido siendo con clases no privilegiadas, con otro tipo de viviendas no privilegiadas.
Y tiene que ver mucho el contexto social en el que crecí. Yo soy de Iztapalapa.
Pero después de todo termina siendo una producción para parecer desalineados.
Es la parte activa, es la parte vivaz, es la parte que tiene la chispa, la energía.
Me acabas de decir que te consideras chacal.
Sí.
Thank you. I would like to introduce Professor Ernest Lalongo, who would like to bring greetings.
Thank you, Dean Mertens, and thank you everyone for accommodating my request to bring congratulations to Professor Gonzalez. Joelle, I want to bring the congratulations of the whole department to you. You're an inspiration with the work that you do outside the college, but I also want to bring my special thanks for the work that you continue to do within the college with your teaching over so many years after having graduated from Hostos. The Behavioral and Social Sciences Department is very proud to have you as a member. I'm personally very thankful for your service to the Behavioral Sciences Unit over all these many years. ably led by our veteran coordinator, Professor Marta Rivera, who I know is in the audience. And this is an exquisite film, Joelle. It's an exquisite film. And I think much needed. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Before we ask a few questions, perhaps Joelle and Victor, you could just add a couple of comments each, and then I'll ask a couple of questions to start this off.
So thank you so much, Professor Lalongo, for those kind words. The film was done, actually, it was, the way that it was born, it was magical. The way that it was produced and realized was also magical, because I stumbled into this character of El Chacal. I didn't know where it was. I was in Mexico City, invited by La Escuela de Psiquiatría Ramón de la Fuente Muñiz, that's the School of Psychiatry from the UNAM. And afterwards, I met Dr. Hugo Gomez, who's part of the film, and my good friend, Jorge del Olmo, who eventually became one of the producers of the film. And we were at his patio and we were talking, and I had a cap on, and Jorge was having fun with me, and he took off my hat and he told me, "Take off that hat, you look like Trump." And it was all a joke. And then when he took off my cap, he told me, "Oh man, you look like a chacal." And I never heard this word before, even though I speak Spanish since birth. And I immediately triggered my imagination. What is it? And then we did some more intellectual looking into it. For example, we noticed that Monsiváis, the greatest author in Mexico, has written about this subject, and is among a few people who have written about this phenomena of the chacal. So we immediately, I said, this is a story that we need to tell. And then in conjunction with the UNAM, who provided all the equipment, all the production staff, and led by Professor Fausto Lamont, which I'm eternally grateful to him, they did all the pre-production. I was there for a few days. I returned. We did all the production in a matter of 6 days, and this film was born. And I think that many people can see this in their own culture. And I have talked, and then I want Victor to elaborate on this, but I have talked to Victor that, for example, in Puerto Rico, we have this kind of subculture too, and it's called something else. But I would like at this time that my dear friend, Victor Torres, Professor Torres, because we have talked about a few terms that for the general audience will be great to be explained. Thank you, Victor.
Hi, yes, I first want to also acknowledge what a wonderful film this is. It's incredibly layered, textured, complex. It's a view in the lives of a group of people that often don't receive attention, and of course issues that address sort of the complexities of internal struggles, both within larger society and within the group, and that's also something that we need to address more. Yeah, a couple of the terms that you know, I mean, there's going to be a whole lot more because this topic is it's very dense. But you know, the term of misogyny, for instance, the idea that there is contempt against women, particularly within a patriarchal society, it's one that it's of relevance. Of course, the very notion of patriarchy. The idea that within the cultural structures and political structures of a country, you have and a specific dominant view on the role, the gender role, the specific gender roles assigned. It's another one that it's important to keep in mind. And yeah, and also the notion of, you know, the different gender identities, right? The idea that gender identities are, you know, cultural productions. They are highly performative. That doesn't mean, nonetheless, that they are, you know, they're of course embodied as they are performative, and we need to sort of understand the ways in which these identities are negotiated, how hard can be negotiated these identities depending on the context, specifically in situations of gender violence. And so, yeah, this I think this film just offers us the opportunity to explore all of these complexities in a microcosm of what society is through the struggles of this specific group. So thank you so much, Joelle, for putting this amazing film together.
Thank you. You know, this being Pride Month, I wanted to ask you about the experience of making this short film in Mexico, which is not known for recognizing the LGBTQ plus community. So tell me about that experience of making the film, and then how was it received in Mexico, Joelle?
So Mexico is not as homophobic as we think. First of all, recently, and I invite people to watch the film, there is a new film in Netflix called The Party of 41, and it tells a story of under the presidency of Porfirio Diaz, he had a son-in-law who was gay, who was married to a daughter in an extramarital relationship. She was half also indigenous, so they were very happy that he married her, but he he was gay. And it's in Netflix and it's very good. But I have to say that in Mexico City, at least, there's so many gay bars, starting with that. Number two, there are many organizations who work towards the benefit of the gay community. The main reason I started going to Mexico was because I met this woman, Gloria Cariaga, and she is a human rights activist. She was representing Mexico at the United Nations at the time. We happened to meet in Puerto Vallarta, where I spent some time, and she's the one who, with her organization, introduced me to the UNAM and to this whole cultural aspect of Mexico. But let me tell you, if you look at the film, and this is something I talked to Victor about it yesterday, that you have the man with the sombrero, with those typical hats, macho man hats. And when we went to the different discotheques, men were pretty much masculine. They looked like cowboys. And then when we filmed Miroslava, that's the transgender person that is shown in the film, when I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, we went almost outside of Mexico City to a very impoverished, the outskirts of Mexico City. This bar was like a dungeon, let's put it that way. It was a scary place, but we went there and we filmed, and that's where they go. So chacales also try to hide, but remember, they are a subculture within the gay community in Mexico. And like the sociologist, Charlie Dos Veces Lopez says, they don't recognize themselves as chacales. Other people have named them chacales, but they do know that they have some characteristics that attract gay men. So Dean Mertens, I would say, you know, in Mexico, there is homophobia like any other place, but in Mexico City, it's not so noticeable.
Thank you. I know from speaking to you before and having watched the video, film a number of times from when you first presented it, the symbols that you have in the film. And I was much more aware of it as I watched it again and again. Perhaps you can address the symbols in the film and the meaning behind them.
Absolutely. So during the film, we go back and back to the angel, el ángel de la independencia. Everyone who goes to Mexico, they say, that's el ángel de la independencia. Well, that's not a man. That's a woman. That is Nike, the goddess of victory in the Greek mythology. So I thought the Chacal was an obscure figure. People don't really know about it. And look, you go to Mexico City and you think that the angel is a man. No, it's not a man, it's a woman. So that misconception I use to bring people back and back to that angel. Also, that angel symbolizes independence. And in the last few years, the last time I was there, well, I was invited there in March 2020, and then you know what happened. We were closed, but they've been desecrating that monument. The people of Mexico City, somehow they detest that monument. So they've been doing graffiti, they've been doing all types of protests. And again, it's because there's so many symbolisms. Also, I wanted people to look at Mexico City. Mexico City has 25 million people. So with those aerial shots, you see the grandiosity of that city, and you can tell. I mean, this place is humongous. I told in a previous meeting with Dean Mertens and the rest of the crew that the first time I went to Mexico City was in 1977. I was 7 years old. I don't recall so much about that trip, but subsequently I've been so many times and I have seen the changes. And Mexico City continues to grow and grow and grow. So it's kind of like a monster, if you will. And I wanted to show that. I also wanted to show the beauty, Centro de Bellas Artes, that palace in the middle of the city that's so grandiose and wonderful. And every artist who is someone has been there. Juan Graviel, from the Dominican Republic, the bachata people, 440, it's so many. And then I also wanted to show that big building that symbolizes the government, and that is in downtown Mexico. And it's very complex when you go to Mexico City, because Mexico City is not constructed in the typical Spanish architecture, but you still have that center, but it grows like a circle, not like a square. But in the middle of that circle, you have this wonderful downtown with this wonderful building that represents government. That's where the government is. And just to finish up, there is a cute, very small aerial shot of El Bosque de Chapultepec. That's where the president of Mexico lives. And it's a humongous park. It's wonderful. You can go, you can visit everywhere around it, except Los Pinos. That's where the latest president lives, López Obrador. So, yeah, thank you.
And one last question before we move on with the program, and then we'll return to questions for everyone at the end. But earlier when we talked, and I mentioned that I came of age as a gay man in the 80s and 90s, and the community was really just known as G&L, gay and lesbian. And then you talked about your coming of age, and the letters expanded a little bit more. And now we have the LGBTQ plus community. How would you say this film, as our community continues to evolve, how do you think this film has helped to educate others?
Well, you know, as we talked before, the community has changed. Before I continue with the answer of that question, I want to recognize something. When I was in Hostos, I was the president of a very famous, for those people who were there at the time, gay organization. It was called Lesbian and Gay United Force, LAGUF. I made a small, very personal documentary about it. And Hostos, at that time, in the 90s, in the midst of the AIDS epidemic, was giving us a place to be, a home that I could feel, I was the president of this association. I had 30 members. We treated each other like a family. But at that time, even the title is lesbian and gay. Now the community has expanded. The more, the merrier, right? And I think it's because many groups identified with the struggle that lesbian and gay people went through. Because when you see the rest of the people who have joined the lesbian and gay community, they are people also who have been ostracized and been rejected. They have been, bothered all their lives for who they are. And I think the beauty of this new LGBTQT, and maybe I'm wrong, community, that's the beauty. That we bring people in, that we accept them, that we said, you know what? We know what you're going through. Come with us. Let's walk this together. And back in the day, I have to say, it was very different. Hostos looked very different. We had a different, actually, where dental hygiene is now, that used to be the cafeteria. And that's where we used to have the parties for LAGUF. So everything has changed. Hostos has changed. The gay community has changed, but I think for the best, for the better. And that is important. And before, I pass the floor to the rest of the panelists, I want to wish everyone a happy Gay Pride. My husband and I are celebrating tomorrow 23 years together. And we are very, very excited to have that celebration. And this jumpstarts my celebration for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. And I just want to touch on the statement you shared, the story of Hostos in 1994 when you started that organization. And I think the president's statement on the gift 15 million is very inclusive of that long history. And I'm just going to read a portion of the quote from the president. For over 50 years, Hostos has been a beacon of hope, a life-transforming institution which lives up to the highest ideals of the democratic values of equity, inclusion, and diversity. Hostos is a home for all who come through our doors in the need of life-changing opportunities presented by quality education delivered with care, hope, and understanding. And I think that serves the organization in 1994 when your organization began to the place we are today that brought that $15 million gift. And I also would like to share that this month is my celebration of 32 years with my partner, that we were legally wed when same-sex marriage became legal in the state of New Jersey. And similar to you, Joelle, my son graduated this year from Hostos. We adopted him 20 years ago from Siberia. With that, I'm going to move on to the next part of our organization, of our presentation today. I'd like to introduce Professor Lara Bonilla of the Latin American and Caribbean Studies Unit, who will introduce our next speaker. The floor is yours, Professor.
First of all, congratulations to both of you on your anniversaries and on Pride Month. This is a really incredible opportunity to join this party. Really a wonderful film as well, and I can't wait to have the discussion at the end when we can discuss. I can talk a little bit more about the film, and you really took us on a trip to a fascinating trip to Mexico City. Thank you so much, Joelle. It is my pleasure now to introduce Gisela Kozak Romero. She is one of the authors, the contributing authors to Hostos Review, Revista Hostosiana number 16 on queer writing of the Americas in English and Spanish. thank you so much for sharing the cover there. I imagine possibly Diana. Thank you. Gisela Kozak is a novelist, a short story writer, and an essayist. She holds a bachelor's degree from Central University of Venezuela and a master in Latin American literature and Doctor of Letters from Simón Bolívar University. She is a tenured professor at the Central Universidad de Venezuela, where she worked for 25 years. Her published books include academic books, several academic books, novels, books of short stories. I will read some of the titles among the academic work. Among her academic work are Rebellion in the Hispanic Caribbean, Cities and Stories Beyond Boom and Postmodernity. Also, The Imaginary Catastrophe. Her fiction work include short story collections such as Sins of the Capital and Other Stories. Also, the most recent Casa de Ciudad, published in Berlin by Ilíada Ediciones this very year after the journal issue was published. She has published also several novels, including Heartbeats of Caracas, All the Moons as well, and books of essays and other books of academic writing as well. She is also an editor and a compiler of other people's work. She has published 7 stamps, Chronicles of Revolutionary Venezuela, and with Armando Chaguaceda, she has published The Left as Authoritarianism in the 21st Century. She publishes articles regularly in many different and high-quality journals and magazines, including Letras Libres, Tiempos Modernos, Latin American Literature Today, Diálogo Político, La Razón in Mexico, Vogue and Altair, and the New York Times page version in Spanish. So it's truly my pleasure to have the honor of including Gisela's work in Hostos Reviews, the issue number 16, and also to welcome her back to Hostos today. She resides in Mexico, so I thought inviting her to this to this dialogue and to this screening of the film to share her work from Mexico was really meaningful and establishes a beautiful connection. So welcome back, Gisela. It's a pleasure to have you again.
Thank you very much, Inmaculada. Thank you, President Cocco de Filippis. Thank you, Dean Mertens and colleagues. Congratulations, Joelle, for your film. I like very much. I remember a character in my country called Cacorro. Okay, Cacorro is a man, a rural world. Okay, it's not. He's not in cities. He's countryman. Okay. I remember with your film. Thank you very much. Okay, I am going to read a fragment of my short story, Passion. Passion belongs my short stories book, En Rojo. I can translate Red World, maybe. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to read in Spanish and English, okay? La pasión, fragmento. Convencida y vencida, húmeda y anhelante, te contemplo luego de abrir la puerta del cuarto en el que duermes en la casa de una amiga común que se niega a tomar partido en la guerra civil. Tú y yo estamos en bandos distintos y por eso nos separamos hace un año. Hay una tregua y debo hacer un reportaje sobre esta frontera entre la nada y el olvido. Pero en realidad estoy aquí porque te sigo amando. Qué cansada debes estar, pues ni siquiera apagaste una débil luz amarillenta que tienes en la mesa cerca de tu cama. Tu uniforme militar está arrugado en una silla, una química trocada en guerrera. Hace frío, pero tú duermes confiada entre cobijas gruesas que te envuelven y que solo dejan ver una pantorrilla torneada, un brazo finamente musculoso, el cuello. Disfruto tu perfil, la nariz que surge del entrecejo con un trazo contundente y recto. Entro, cierro, me quito la chaqueta de cuero, la dejo en la única silla. Con ternura me inclino sobre ti, arreglo las cobijas sobre tu cuerpo. Quiero ser esas cobijas para tocar toda tu piel en una sola caricia. Me acuesto a tu lado. Aceptas mi presencia. Estás dormida. Estás despierta. Recorro apenas rozándote con mi nariz tu cuello, desde la nuca hasta tu oreja. El olor es solo tuyo. Siento tu estremecimiento y te envuelvo con el brazo izquierdo. Te acomodas. Sabes que soy yo quien te abraza. Mis pechos prueban su dureza en tu espalda. Mi otra mano sostiene mi cabeza. Abres los ojos, pero no me miras de inmediato. Con los dedos comienzo a recorrer tu vientre y empiezo a subir. Haces un gesto tímido intentando evitarlo. No insisto, beso tu cuello, no he dejado de amarte. Nunca, ni un día. Murmuro. Passion. Convinced and conquered, with an eager, I watch your sleep. I watch you sleep after walking through the door of this room in a house owned by a mutual friend who refused to take sides in the Civil War. You and I are in different camps. That's why we split up a year ago. There is a truce, and I supposed to write an article about this border between void and oblivion. But really, I'm here because I still love you. You must be so tired. You didn't even turn off the dim yellow lamp on the bedside table. Your military uniform is wrinkled on the chair, a chemist turned warrior. It's cold, but you sleep safe wrapped in thick covers that reveal only the curve of your calf, the fine muscles of your arm, your neck. I take in your profile the bloom, straight line of your nose coming down from your brow. I walk in, close the door, take off my leather jacket, leave it on the only chair in the room. I lean over you tenderly and adjust the blankets on your body. I want to be them and touch all of your skin in a single caress. I lie down next to you. You accept my presence. You are asleep. Are you awake? Barely touching. I brush my nose along the back of your neck to your ear. The ascent is yours alone. I feel you stir, and I wrap my left arm around you. You lean closer. You know it's me holding you. My breasts taste their firmness against your back. My other hand props up my head. You open your eyes, but don't look at me right away. My finger caress your belly and start moving up. You shift away shyly. I don't insist. I kiss your neck. I've never stopped loving you, not even for a day. I whisper. Thank you.
So if I can ask you a couple of questions. This is from a book, a collection of short stories. Can you talk more about your book and the stories that are in it, and what is the intersecting theme throughout them, if there is one?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I wrote in rojo when I lived in Venezuela, and I want to show a lifestyle, a way of life in an authoritarian world. The authoritarianism includes the sex, the love, all life. I think I want to write about politics, poverty, violence, and I wanted to write about love, about affects, about how the personal life is intervened by politics. Okay, and I believe that passion is a erotic story, but it's an erotic story with an politics ingredient, political ingredients. Okay, two women belong two sides in a civil war. Okay, but the relationship between them, it's more important than the politics problem. No? I think that Hannah Arendt said the love is anti-politic. Okay, the love, is the love is against worldly, okay, mundanidad. Corrígeme, Inmaculada. And I choose this way. Okay, the love can be anti-politics in authoritarian worlds. I activist, lesbian activist, but my activists search freedom, search a best word, okay? And in authoritarian world, love, okay, is against the hyperpolitician, la hiperpolitización of the life. Okay.
Thank you. Your words are so powerful and so beautiful. And I just want to reiterate the ending of your writing where you say, I kiss your neck. I've never stopped loving you, not even for a day, I whisper. I mean, really beautiful and a great way to summarize the contrast of politics and violence and civil war, and then a basic, simple love. So I really appreciated that. We do have some time left, and what I would like to do is open up the discussion for anyone who would like to comment or ask a question. We do have one question in the question and answer, and Dean Gomez, would you like to ask the question yourself? Can we allow Dean Gomez to do that? Dean Gomez says, this was such an informative short film, leaving one to want to know more. I couldn't help but compare the concept of Chacal to other studies about culture, gender, masculinity, etc. Is this concept one that transcends culture? Perhaps both Victor and Joelle could comment on that.
So, of course, culture has a lot to do with this subject, because this is a subculture. These are people who live in a common culture with the rest of the Mexicans, but they fall in another category where they don't convey the same signs of masculinity that other men do. And something I have to say is we have to listen to Dr. Hugo Gomez. He takes care, he's one of the people in the film. And he says, I have these people that come to my therapy room. And it's a very complex life, because not only their group doesn't accept them, but the people they want to interact or have relationships with, they neither accept them. So they're left in this limbo in a cultural limbo or a social limbo. Something I want to clarify. Chacal, in order to be a Chacal, you have to be indigenous. You need to come from one of the many indigenous cultures in Mexico. Also, you need to be underprivileged. You need to be poor. That's part of the description. And also, you need to be masculine. Those are, for the most part, the characteristics of a Chacal. But it's very complex because Professor Lara Bonilla, who has lived in Mexico, has been in Mexico, knows that the relationship in Mexico, the social class, is very strong. And I mentioned before, we spend a lot of time, my husband and I, in Mexico, and there are people who are indigenous who lower their gaze when they pass us. I mean, that level of sort of like, I'm not your same, so therefore I don't look at you. And it's a very complex and situation. I want to also say that before, we leave, that Chakalmex this month is actually not only showing here at Hostos, but the beginning of next month, we will be in Peru, in Outfest, Peru. They had contacted us before, and then the pandemic began, and we couldn't show the film. But now we're going to be able to, for the first time, show in Peru, in South America, for that South American audience. Although I have shown other films in South America, in Uruguay and Chile and Argentina, but this is my first time in Peru, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Thank you. And Professor Velez, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yes, I was just sort of thinking about how fascinating was the fact that, again, within this group, if we were to understand the gay community in Mexico as including the Chacales, a few things are happening in here. First, there is certain level of the reproduction of the social and class and racial hierarchies that operate within Mexico written large. And so to the point where the identity of the gay, white, upper middle class communities' identity gets defined against the identity of the Chacales, and so the constitution of their own subjectivity seems to be in relation to the Chacales, and hence that's why they are ascribing this specific label to this community. The power of ascription, the power of defining, is thus exercised, and by doing so, they are positioning themselves within the top of the hierarchy, and they're placing the Chacales at the lower end, which of course coincide with the racial, ethnic, and class hierarchies in Mexico, in which indigenous folks are at the bottom of the social class for centuries. And so these racial structures are being reproduced. More interestingly, also, and paradoxical, as the couple of the professors in the film pointed out, is the fact that in order for the Chacales in order for Chacales to interact within the gay community, they have to exercise a type of masculinity, right? The toxic kind of masculinity, which paradoxically also limits them access to other resources. So there is this tragedy, so to speak, in which, in order to survive a violent heteronormative order, they have to reproduce it, they have to embody it, right? And that's sort of the tragedy. While they have this space where they can express a non-normative component of their masculinity, it is nonetheless done through the language of the dominant language of heteronormativity and specifically toxic masculinity. And that's just fascinating and complex. Yes.
Oh no, I wanted to speak after you completed, Professor. Please continue. Please continue.
Yeah, that was my brief interjection. But
I think one of the biggest challenges is certainly for women in the women movement and for other groups is that some of the really toxic behavior of the dominant society is adopted in ways that are just awful. In this case, I want to say two things. I thought it was so powerful, and I thought the whole issue of race and the difference that makes in terms of who serves. I think they use that word serve, right? And so on. Is so ingrained, and yet, think of the immigrant experience. That, of course, if it's an illegal immigrant or undocumented immigrant, I should say, or consider illegal immigrant here in the United States, doesn't change. But I know for me, as a woman of the Caribbean, coming to the United States with all the challenges was liberating. It was liberating to grow up as a young woman who loved books and could do that, right? So I want to say thank you, because there's so much to this conversation. Probably we should integrate viewing this and having discussion of writing papers in some of our courses. Professora Gisela, I have to tell you, I was choked with tears because what you read was such an incredible moment of tenderness and love, and what it means to me, it replicated, right? What it means even after all these years that I'm married, going near my husband and just when he's sleeping, and know that he is going to trust me to be next to him and to put my head on his shoulder. It was just such a beautiful, 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 sensitive piece. Thank you. Really, it takes a lot to read that. Those are tough things to read out loud, but you did, and you did that beautifully, and it speaks to so much that is so absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much.
I'll go ahead. I'm sorry, Professor. Go ahead, Lara Bonilla. Yes.
Yes, so I had a couple of thoughts as I was listening to both the film and the excerpt from the short story in my head, sort of replaying them, and thinking about how both approach the connection between sexuality and sensuality and politics in such different ways, and they both connect them. And still trying to make sense of them. And it definitely, I would certainly echo the president's words and making this a longer conversation. There are so many opportunities. We're so privileged to be able to bring this into the classroom, and we need to be able to do so. We need to, integrate the journal, integrate the film, maybe have, continue this conversation, continue this this presence, right? Because we go for months without seeing each other, without, knowing what's happening, but bringing it back into the classroom offers an amazing opportunity to continue this conversation. And there's so much to unpack in a class, within the context of a class, from different angles from which we teach. Even, Professor Torres-Vélez and I in the same unit, we teach from different angles and from different disciplines. And so approaching this material from those angles is just so rich. And I was very curious to see, I guess my second question is, how did you view this film, Gisela, from, being in Mexico and making sense of what this film exposes of the Chacal culture, which you might have been, more or less familiar with, but also you're connecting with another subculture in Venezuela. So if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, in Venezuela is a problematic society, and the masculinity and femininity are becoming in other things. It's a patriarchal society, but the new generation have other visions because the work continues, and the LGBT movement achieve a few things. Okay, there is not egalitarian marriage or any civil rights. Okay, the young people have few opportunities to change the things, and their sexuality, the gender identities resist the authoritarian society that they live. Okay, Cacorro is a man, young man, or it's a man. It's a man of small cities, small town, and the Cacorros has not educated men, okay, countrymen, workermen, or men belong informal economy, okay, and they are men very strong, very great muscle, very strong, and they have girlfriends or woman, okay, but they like transgender or gay men, but they have active role, okay. Cacorro, I'm going to say in Spanish, okay. El cacorro no se deja coger por nadie, okay. Cacorro, excuse me my language. Cacorro fucks, but nobody can fuck Cacorro, okay. Cacorro ever is a man, okay. The gay is, okay, the man with passive role, okay. It's a old habit, okay. The critics registers Cacorro 18, 19 centuries, okay. It's a masculinity, problematic masculinity. It's other phase of masculinity, okay. The real man is able to have other men if the man is like a woman, okay. In Mexico, this behavior has a name, rajado, okay. The rajado means the woman, the anatomic way of woman, okay. Vagina, okay, and in Venezuela is very common, okay, but it's underground, okay. Popular sex stores, little cities, okay.
Thank you. Professor Ilongo, I know you wanted to ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, I'm muted, right? Hopefully, yeah. So I wanted to say that, as I mentioned in the beginning, making films is a collaborative endeavor. I cannot make this film without the many other people who collaborated with me. I want to highlight Hostos Professor. When we translated the film, it was very complex because he had a lot of Mexican terminology. So we needed to consult a few people, but one of retiree now, Professor Kim Sanabria, she helped me in this film and she helped me with the subtitles. Also, I want to point out that I forgot when you asked me about the monuments, that during the film, we have the shot of a church. And the importance of that church is because that's the oldest church in the Western Hemisphere. And it's in the town of Chimalistac. And if you go there, you see, and it's a wonderful, it's such a small place, but full of significance. And it is right next to the park named La Bombilla. It has another name, but everybody who goes to Mexico, they know where La Bombilla Park is. Right behind it. That is a wonderful church that I want people to know. But I also want to talk about the process of making a film. A film is not made like magic. And the same way professors do their digging and then they do their writing and they get published, this is the way that I get published, making this film, having done a lot of research because it was a brand new subject for me, then gathering the resources, which for me, it was excellent that the UNAM, this university who has the largest population of students in the world, supported me and gave me this production crew that I was able to do this film. And one thing, I was told very early on, they said, well, we're going to help you, but don't talk back about Mexico, because people who talk back about Mexico, they don't return to Mexico. So all along, I wanted to make a film that, as you see, the film ends with this guy saying, if you want sexual services, call me. You know, so I wanted a film that it was educational, but it was also light, that people felt relaxed when they watched this film. Additionally, I have to say the music done by Tarek Washington, he is a Grammy Award winner, is fantastic. And the only song that we use is a very old song that it was popularized in the 1920s. So now it's in the public domain. So we were very lucky with that. And that's the song that Miroslava performs. Additionally, I have to say that at this moment that Hostos is so lucky that we get this wonderful gift. I think also it is very important that Hostos continues to support the gay community, just like in the 1990s when I was there, that Hostos provides this place where gay people can flourish. Unfortunately, in the last few years, there has not been a gay club. That I know is not the problem. It's just students are not there. But I think we should work into that the students can come together and that Hostos, once again, is that place for the community. Thank you.
I'd like to say a couple of words, Professor. I think it has been an ebb and flow. You know, you talk about a gay club, gay and lesbian club in the 90s. When I was there in 2002, 2003, was not very active, you know, at that time. So we tried to bring speakers. We had a series of speakers and other than that. But I want to just kind of remind you a little bit, all of you, my dear colleagues, who are faculty and staff, that the way clubs flourish is when they have a faculty advisor, right? Isn't that part of the process, or it used to be? So I think it is a question of, hopefully with the college reopening, gradually and safely, but reopening with all of New York, that we do get one or two, you know, if it's too much of a burden for one person, maybe two professors to become advisors and to have that club revived. The one thing I think that this year has proven with the Veladas is that we are very supportive in whatever form we could, even in the silence of a pandemic, to bring a lot of diversity and a lot of conversations around arts and culture and diversity and equity. So, you know, that needs to continue. I think the journal that the Latin American Writers Institute produces is really significant. It is something that I believe always in the written word, in the film. I agree with you. Long ago, when I was at Hostos and we talked about faculty portfolios, there are multiple ways to evaluate scholarship, you know, whether it's a grant that gets funded, where it's a whole series where you educate public school folks, or a film that you produce, or a collection of poems that you publish, or whatever that may be. There are multiple. The thing is that what you want in the classroom is a live mind that is happy and engaged with the content, you know, with the subject and inspire the students to understand that there's beauty in that. So I just answered that briefly because I think 2 or 3 times you've tried to remind me of this. So I'll just say that. Okay. So I think it's please, you know, all of you be encouraged to really work with students in the clubs, because that's a way also for them to learn leadership in significant ways, you know, as well.
Thank you, President. And I know, Professor Lalongo, you've wanted to make a comment or ask a question, if you can do so now.
Yeah,
thank you. Joelle, I just wanted to say that, and to the President as well, I think some of the values of the Veladas Hostosianas is that we make connections amongst all the colleagues that work at the college. That so what you took was this marginalized community in an already somewhat marginalized community, and you brought it to light, and you did it masterfully. Both the subjects themselves spoke for themselves, but also the scholars who studied the society and the social dynamics. But in what was incredible, and where I saw the connections with the other departments, humanities, my own department, etc., English, of course, is just the power of Western beauty and gender standards, that the sort of the colonial power of those Western beauty and gender standards, which just, it's unbelievable how it just filters down into every part of Western society. But also your emphasis on the Chacal, the indigenous, the quote unquote, like the proletariat, the sexuality of the proletariat. There are connections here across societies and the ages, which a film can be used in any class, is what I'm saying. So I'm thinking to myself, we have a wonderful colleague, Thomas Beachdale, who does the art of, you know, world societies, Western societies, global societies. And your work directly connects to the artwork of Paul Gauguin in the late 19th century, when he went to the Pacific Islands, Tahiti, and he painted for a European audience the Tahitian subjects, glorifying, mythologizing the dark other, simultaneously loved and hated at the same time. And it was incredible to me when the Chacal that you had interviewed were saying how they were always living on the edge of violence, simultaneously loved and hated, a part of society, a critical part of society, the sort of the dark and dangerous other that, you know, Edward Said's and the Orientalizing concept across all societies. So, I mean, your film in its microcosm can be used in any American or world history class, you know, virtually any class in the Humanities Department that I'm familiar with, many of our English classes. It's a great piece of work.
Thank you, Professor Lalongo. It means a lot to me. So I have to say, I see in the chat that Professor Charles Rice Gonzalez has a question about chacales and bugarrones. Victor and I yesterday, we talked about this. They sort of fall in the same category. So they're men having sex with men, but not identifying themselves as gay. And I think that's where the cacorro that Gisela talked about and Professor Rice Gonzalez mentions, I think that's when, that's the connection between all those characters. I have to say, for me, it was a learning process. And one thing I should add is that when we did the editing, the editor convinced me that I was a character in the film. That's why you see that they keep referring to me, Joelle this, and I show up, you know, my back shows up, I show up sometimes, because in discussions with the editor, she says, you are as much as part of this story as they are, because you're asking all these questions and, you know, we can't remove you from the film. So I was a little bit concerned about that. Filmmakers usually like to be behind cameras. But I said, yes, it's part of it, because it was something, it was a process of learning for me too, that this new subculture was jump-started in a random conversation, and a year after we're filming, and 3 years after we're showing the film here, it has been shown in other places. We were selected in the very famous Oaxaca Film Festival and made it to the semifinalist. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but as I say, you know, as long as the film gets seen and that I get to share with other filmmakers and other people, that's a plus. That's something that I am very happy with. And also, I want to say that in the process of doing this film, certain things happen, and it happens in every film. But in this film, we had one guy, and we were going to interview him, and he had a big fight with his boyfriend. And when we got to his house, he was totally like deformed. So it was shocking to me. And then I realized how violent these people can be. And furthermore, I would like to add something. I tried also as a filmmaker to clean stories, because I don't like to tell, you know, every single detail will not make sense in a film. But something I have to add, because Professor Rice Gonzalez is asking if there are sex workers. Well, in the relationship with the chacal is give and take. Doesn't have to be sex worker. It could be, you give me your t-shirt and I give you pleasure. You give me your sneakers and I give you pleasure. You take me to dinner and I give you pleasure. So I don't know if that's considered sex workers, or, you know, I don't want to put them into that category, but definitely it's an exchange between two adults, and it's a consenting. So also we have somebody who's very famous in Mexico. The guy, his name is Emilio Savani. He's part of the film. But something I want to tell, and then we move along. I didn't want to stigmatize the chacales once I got to meet them. So what I did was, everybody who has only a name, like Angel or Enrique or Jesus, those are chacales. Everybody else has a last name. So the engineer that shows up, Alejandro Garibay, then you have Hugo Gomez, Charlie Dos Veces Lopez. So you can differentiate who is the expert in this film and who is the chacal. And it was a wonderful experience. It was scary because at points, and with this, I move on. When we went to shoot at that Cactus Bar, I told the driver who took me there, I said, would you wait for me? Because we had all this equipment, all this lights and sound and this. And he's like, no, I can return for you. And I said, no. Would you wait for me outside? And he said, yes. And I said, how much do you want? He says, $25 an hour. I said, just start the meter. Sit there, wait for me. Because what I was afraid that people saw me coming out with all this equipment and a group of people and we will be robbed. And then I will be, that could happen anywhere, but it happened to me. Then I had to reimburse the University of Mexico, the UNAM. And that was things that happens behind the cameras. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. That really is all the time that we have for today. We could probably go on, but that's it. I want to say thank you for participating and for joining us. Special thanks to our president, Dr. Daisy Cocco de Filippis, Professor Joelle González-Laguer, Professor Victor Torres-Vélez, Professor Lara Bonilla, and Ms. Gisela Kozak. I would also like to thank the President's Office for their support and expertise in today's Velada. We look forward to staying in touch with you. The recorded content of today's event will be available on our YouTube page in approximately 1 week. I want to end by saying love is love is love. Happy Pride to all and have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for joining us. Let's have a big round of applause.